So, good morning. I am waiting for people to enter the webinar. I see we have quite a few attendees already. And officially we'd start in 2 minutes our time. But I'm going to give people 5 minutes more to just file into the room, so to speak. Have to say, I've been using Microsoft Teams a lot because a lot of our trainings and sessions are in Teams. So I haven't been using Zoom for a while now, but it is still the better option for public broadcasting. So I'll use that. Luckily, I have with me my trusty secondant, Floris Bosch, my esteemed colleague from Gladwell Academy, and Kiran Kaur Singh. Give it up for the secondants. Okay. So I've walked around the Zoom environment a little. See, we have a question and answer area. If you have any questions that pop up during the webinar, feel free to post them in the question and answer screen. If you can find it in your own client software. And we'll also be doing a couple of polls to begin with, just to get a feel of who's here. So it's really cool to see everyone filing in to the webinar. It's fantastic. Yep. All you professional Agile coaches, really curious to see what kind of companies you're coming from and countries in the world, perhaps even. So officially we'd start now, and we have quite a few registers for today. I believe it's even over 100. So I'm going to give people just a few more minutes to file in because we're currently at 32 attendees. Of course, you always have that with webinars. A whole bunch of people sign up because it's free. And then at the last minute, something else happens. And you decide, nah, I'll go play with my kids. Feel free to do that, of course. Okay. So I see, oh, there is a chat window. Fantastic. Okay, great. Yeah. So I won't be monitoring the chat all the time. That'll be either Floris or Kiran monitoring the chat, but it is monitored. And if a question pops up in the chat that is relevant to me, I'll be attended to it, and I'll go into it at the end of the webinar. So in case you notice that your question isn't really being answered, hold tight. We'll get to it in a minute. Okay. Yeah. So I see attendees are still filing in. And let me just take this moment to explain why we're doing this webinar. It's been a chaotic time for everyone. COVID-19 and coronavirus behind it have been marching across the world, and everybody found themselves dipped into chaos. And it happened for Gladwell Academy as well. I'll introduce us in a bit to give a bit of backstory on who we are and what we do. And we noticed that now that we've had the first wave of COVID and Corona wash over the world, things are starting to return to a new kind of normal. And we're offering our learnings, some of our learnings on how to cope. And I'm also curious on how you guys are coping. Okay. So just a little dip into the waters. Let's see where everybody's from for a bit. We have 45 attendees now. I think it's leveling out slowly. In the chat, if you can find it, if you're not Dutch, could you please post which country you're from? If you're not located in the Netherlands, which country are you dialing in from? Just curious to see that. So this is not a poll. Yeah, okay, lots of Europeans, Indian, great, fantastic, really cool to see. Okay. Welcome Germany, great. Okay. So we have a webinar of about an hour to go, and I hope you like it. I prepared it in the past few days. What I did is I got in touch with a few of my colleagues. I'm an Agile coach myself, but as Gladwell Academy, we have several Agile coaches. And I asked them, how have you as an Agile coach been coping with the lockdown or the social distancing in the past couple months? How would you assess how you're doing? And what have you learned? And I thought it might be a good idea, or actually Floris, my esteemed colleague, thought it might be a good idea to share these learnings with the Agile Coach community and to also see how you guys are doing. Okay, so now we're 10:04, and I'd very much like to start the webinar. If you have questions, either put them in the Q&A or in the chat and they'll find us. If not, sit tight and let's go. I've also tried to put some interactivity in here and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so stay tuned. Okay, let's go. Who are we? Let's introduce myself. I'm Boris. I'm an Agile coach and mostly a trainer in the Scaled Agile framework. I've been coaching a municipality in Holland, the gemeente Den Bosch, for the past couple of months, as an example. And I've been training a whole bunch of professionals in the Scaled Agile framework, which brings Agile principles and methods to a very large corporate level. And this is, of course, what Gladwell Academy is known for most in Europe. We were one of the first companies in Europe to embrace the Scaled Agile framework and to start offering trainings. Did that since little after 2015 when we began. But of course, we began, like many Agile consultants, with training in Scrum and just the Agile mindset, Agile principles. With the addition of Renate Kramer on the team, who's a colleague of mine, she is a corporate psychologist to begin with, and she pioneered the Agile Coach program, which we currently offer in 2 flavors, a Post-HBO version, which is a 12-day program aimed at Dutch graduates of the vocational schooling HBO, the Hoger Beroepsonderwijs, higher vocational education. And that's certified in the Dutch educational system. But we also offer the Agile Coach Bootcamp, which is a 4-day course, and I'll go into that a little more later. And this is our main offering to Agile coaches worldwide. And it's offered by a seasoned team of Agile coaches and Lean Agile trainers. So that's who we are, and a little about who I am. That means that as an Agile coach, I'm relatively junior. I'm not a bearded Agile guru, though of course I am a little bearded. But I had the opportunity to get in touch with 3 or 4 of my colleagues and ask them how they are doing. And in this webinar, you'll see the results of that harvest. Okay, what is our agenda? We're doing a check-in now. Then we'll have a little bit on what we see as an Agile coach today and the impact of the Corona crisis and the COVID on Agile coaching. And then we'll go into questions and closing. And in all, this webinar should last about an hour. though we have a little bit spillover time calculated in. All right. So, a little check-in. How many people do we have today? It's run up to 58 participants. I have a poll for you. I'm suspecting that a lot of you are freelancers. I don't know if that's correct, but I want to launch a poll and see what kind of coach are you? Are you internally hired? Are you a freelancer? How is that? Wow, that's a surprise, actually. Yeah, there's a lot of votes coming in. And I see that most people are actually internal coaches. That's fantastic. I did not know that. Okay, now the reason I had this assumption is because I figured the question, how to keep your teams with you, is very much a commercial question that freelance Agile coaches would ask. And we'll get to the why behind that in a minute. I'll go into that a bit more. Okay, so thanks for that. I realize that most of you are internal coaches furthering the transformation at major corporations around the world, no doubt, and struggling to cope with the new situation. All right, thanks for that. But I have a second poll, and I want to, okay, let me just quickly share the results. Sharing the polling results. Most of you are actually internal coaches. All right. And I have a second poll. Just want to know how you're doing. How is it for you? I've given you 5 choices in a Likert scale, so a 1 to 5 scale, and I've colored them in a little bit. From 1, business is awful, to 5, never better. And the 3 is the same as usual. Now, I would expect few people to actually choose the 3, because if it's same as usual, then you'll have no trouble being an Agile coach, and that wouldn't really give you a reason to join the webinar. Nice to see that most of you are optimistic. Yeah. I would imagine, though, that that has changed in the past month or so, even. Because when we started doing the marketing for this webinar, when we arrived at the idea that it might be a good idea to do it, things were still quite a bit more chaotic and frankly pessimistic than they are today. And I don't even know how the economy and how business will look a month from now. But right now, we're seeing that the first chaotic wave has settled a little bit. And that means something, of course, for your practice as an Agile coach. Okay, so 82% voted. And I'm going to end the poll because nobody is entering anything anymore. And sharing the results and seeing that most of you are actually quite optimistic, and that is really nice to see. And as you'll see, I agree with you. I think there's plenty of reason to think that that we will find a new normal that doesn't hurt the transformation, that actually furthers the transformation. Just this morning in the newspaper, I read that electric bike company Van Moof, which is a very hard-hitting Dutch producer of electric bikes, is going up for a second investment round because business is booming. And this is how crisis brings change and brings opportunity. Suddenly, people don't want to use public transport anymore, so they're storming towards electric bikes, and that gives business a reason to adapt. So if you're in the right business, then there's ample reason to rejoice, and if not, then you need to pivot. And then we get to why Agile ways remain interesting and promising. I even have a few never betters coming in here. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share now. And I have a third poll for you. And I'm going to launch that one too. I don't know why you're here. So that's the third and last poll, promise. Why are you here? Yep, obviously. Okay. Some are wanting to check in with peers. Most are curious to learn tips and tricks on how to keep the teams with you, of course. Okay. All right. So, not going to share those results. Just trust me, by far, most of you are curious to see how to keep your teams with you. Right. Okay. So, what is an Agile coach the way we see it? Is it a Scrum Master? Is it an RTE? Many people, when they get to know the role of the Agile coach, they wonder if it's actually in the same vein as the Scrum Master. So a label that you can really have, a function, a role that you have either in a team or in a program or something like that. And the RTE, if you're familiar with SAFe, the release train engineer is like a chief Scrum Master. Is it someone who facilitates the ceremonies? Or does it even have a limited scope, such as the Scrum Master having a limited scope to a single team? No, short answer. The way we see an Agile coach, it's not a role, really. It's a set of competences, similar to a servant leader, though you might say that the servant leader is a set of competences that everyone should have. Everyone should have that combination of going out of your way to help someone and going out of your comfort zone to help someone grow, which are, of course, two core competences of the servant leader. So it's somewhere in between those two. It's somewhere between the very defined master of ceremonies, coach limited to the team aspect of the Scrum Master, and the set of competences and characteristics of a servant leader. But what I want to illustrate here, or what I want to claim here, is that there are a whole bunch of different interpretations of the Agile coach. If I was able to design the poll to ask you that question, I would probably find that there are as many flavors of Agile Coach as there are participants in this webinar right now. You're a whole different bunch of Agile coaches. I can ask you what results influence your paycheck, and I'll find that a whole different range of results influence your paycheck. I can ask you, what are the things you do during your day? And you'll see some work with single teams. Some are actually very close to being a Scrum Master, or they are a Scrum Master. So where's the difference? So thinking about this, we take a very free-ranged interpretation of the Agile Coach, and I call it the champion of the Agile transformation. Champion is a very old word, comes from the medieval times. And a champion would be someone who's very good at fighting, and they'd step into the arena for someone else, for a count or a bishop or a king or a lady, a princess, whatever. And they fight the fight for them. And in this sense, the Agile transformation is your mistress, is your princess, and you enter the arena for that goal. And that is a very free-formed interpretation, which means that a Scrum Master can be an Agile coach. An RTE can be an Agile coach. If a product owner is going out of their regular duties to educate the rest of the organization on how to advance the transformation, then they are an Agile coach. That's the way I see it. And that's the way we see it. And of course, that makes sense because it enables us to offer this Agile Coach training to a whole bunch of people who wouldn't call themselves Agile Coach right off the bat. And of course, I realize that there are a whole bunch of you out there who actually make a living from being an Agile Coach firstly. And that's very valid. But the Agile Coach education that we give and the Agile Coach Bootcamp both focus on imparting, educating a set of characteristics that are useful for people who are a full-time Agile Coach, and also for people who are doing something else in the Agile ways of working and wouldn't call themselves an Agile Coach first thing. Stakeholder management, giving workshops, facilitating, helping teams at various levels. It's all in there. So this is our interpretation of what an Agile Coach is. And for those people who are a full-time Agile Coach, you may run into difficulty explaining what it is you do because it's so free-formed. And the first interactive part of the presentation, of the interactive part of this webinar, is actually examining how free-formed it really is. Yeah, so there, you're the champion fighting for someone else. Good luck with that. All right. So it's a free-formed profession. It's a free-formed craft. And I don't know if you can click this item. That's actually a little doubt that I have. There's the chat coming in. You can't click it. No, no, no. Okay, you can stop saying no now. That's fine. Let me just... Okay, I wanted this to be an interactive presentation. So in the chat, I'm putting a mural invite. And this is an anonymous invite, so you should not have to build a sign-in. But I wanted to take you to a mural. And if you follow the link in the chat, then you should be able to go to the mural. A mural is essentially a big whiteboard, but it's a whiteboard that that allows prefab stuff. Okay. So, where's the link? I just posted it in the chat. It starts with app.mural.co. That's interesting. I see a lot of people don't see the link. I'm posting it again. I cannot see the link neither. That's crazy. From me to all panelists. I see. Oh, I'm sorry. All panelists and attendees. Okay, this was a setting I needed. I now send it to all attendees. Okay, no problem. Sorry, guys. As I said, I use Microsoft Teams. I've been using the hell out of Microsoft Teams for the past few months, and I was a little bit rusty on the Zoom functionality. But I quickly wanted to brainstorm with you some activities that you're used to carrying out as an Agile coach. Okay, I'm going to lock that one. Could you brainstorm some activities that you're used to carrying out on these several levels? You are individuals, teams, program level, and organizational level. If you double click on the mural, you can put a post there, like this. Yeah. So try and brainstorm some activities that you're used to carrying out for your teams. I see someone typing yes. Whole bunch of people in there. What are activities that you carry out as an Agile coach on these several levels? Great. Okay, so you're participating in Scrum of Scrums, workshops. I don't know if you've used this program before, but I've been using the hell out of Mural for the past months as well. It's been hugely helpful in facilitating remote collaboration, brainstorming, work breakdown structures. And it's just been tremendously helpful. Its major competitor, of course, is Miro. And I see a whole bunch of activities coming in there. Right, your own learning as an individual, yes. Introductions to Agile ways of working, face-to-face discussions. Right. Okay. Okay, thanks for that. So that's just dipping the temperature stick in the audience. Educating executives on Agile ways of working and benefits, of course, yes. Okay. This is, of course, a page taken from Alyssa Atkins. I'm going back to the PowerPoint now. Thanks a lot. I'm going back to the PowerPoint now, and I just needed, it was enough to ask you this simple question to discover that because you're a wide audience, you're doing a whole bunch of different things on these very different levels. And this is the point I wanted to make. What you want to do as an Agile coach to keep your teams with you really depends on what level of the organization you're working at. And this is, of course, taken from Alyssa Atkins, the different layers of Agile coaching. Okay, I'm moving on in the presentation now to show you how we train Agile coaches in 3 modules in the Post-HBO program, the 12-day program. I'll get to the bootcamp in a bit. But it follows a similar structure. Because you work on these different levels, our educational modules also follow those different levels. So the first module is focused on individuals and teams. The second module focuses on teams and program level. And the third module focuses on enterprise coaching. We used to call the modules foundation, practitioner, and advanced, but it's actually a wrong identifier, because the individual could be the CEO or the CXO, and that's by far a foundation competence. You need to be quite a senior Agile coach to instruct or challenge CXO level executives on Agile ways of working. But you do work on these different layers. And we'll see how that plays out in a bit when we go to how to keep your teams with you. All right. We offer those courses fully remote. Just wanted to point that out. And this is the major pivot that we've made in the past few months. And the first, of course, the first lesson or the first instruction I want to impart to you is to make that similar leap. As an Agile coach, embracing remote is one of the first things you should do. The Agile ways of working focus on how you work, and if remote is the new black, then you need to make that jump. When we as a training institute, as a training agency, discovered that the world was moving towards lockdown, I'm honest, I can be honest and say panic just broke out. It was horrible. For a moment there, we thought we would lose all the business that we have, because our entire business model was focused around physical classrooms. You know, having 30 or 40 people in the room and joining the trainer in a physical location and spreading disease like wildfire. No, I honestly say we haven't had any news of anyone being infected with the coronavirus while in our classrooms. Happy to be able to say that. But, you know, it might have happened. I don't know. The point is that we made the jump really fast. We immediately started harvesting and learning about remote delivery. We've built several advanced training rooms at the company. I'm currently training from my own home, but that's because I have a room where I was able to build a setup, and it was assessed by my colleagues and deemed sufficiently training worthy. So that's why I'm able to train from home. When we made that jump, we pretty soon learned that our clients were ready to make the jump as well. And so that's the second learning, perhaps. Companies are rather willing, of course they have to make the jump. They just need a couple of nudges, and they need guidance to do it. And that's where we come in. That's where you come in, of course. So this is a no-brainer. It's the jump that you can make. It's a new job for you, actually. It's not less work, it's more work. Okay. So Bootcamp, Post-HBO, they're all available on remote. Post-HBO course, it's in Dutch only. So if you want more information and you are Dutch, then have a look. It's under here, but I believe Floris will be giving the exact link later on. You can find it at gladwell.nl. I expected this link to be clickable for you guys, but it isn't. So stick around, and at the end of the webinar, we'll be giving the link. We use heavily the Clifton Strengths, also known as the Strengths Finder. It's a very powerful tool to discover your personal strengths as an Agile coach. That figures heavily in the course, and that really makes the learnings of the course tailored to you as a professional. We also heavily build on Lissa Adkins's Coaching Agile Teams body of work. She's quite a powerful thinker in the Agile Coach world. And so, yeah. Oh, I see Esther Schmidt coming in and saying, I've done the course. It's a great one. She's actually posting it twice. Thank you very much, Esther. So, yeah. Great. And I see Chris Coxon enjoyed the SPC training in Barcelona. Yes, well, the SPC is, of course, a major flavor of the Agile Coach, though the SPC figures entirely in the Scaled Agile framework. And there are many Agile coaches who are not working in the Scaled Agile framework, and that's fine. Anyway, third book I wanted to introduce here as a major ingredient in the Post-HBO 12-day course is Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Building a safe atmosphere in your teams for your professionals to excel in a changing world, in a changing market. Yeah, so those are 3 books that really form the foundation of this course. There's other material, but I'm not going to go into that now. Yeah. For international participants, just wanted to pay attention to the Agile Coach Bootcamp, an International Coaching Association certified course. So if you do this course 4 days and then you're ICA certified, and this is actually an issue of some importance for a lot of Agile coaches. We have a very pluriform, a very multicolored profession. There are, as I said, many different flavors of Agile coach. So how do you separate the wheat from the chaff? How do you differentiate between the experienced and the junior? Well, this ICA certification is one way to do that. And so it's 4 days of exploring the environment, team dynamics, Agile ways of working, and the professional maturity of an Agile coach. We have several experienced coach trainers who deliver it. First is Renate Kramer, who actually designed the course. Roel de Ponti is with our sister company, Agility Masters. Welcome professionals from Agility Masters to this webinar, by the way. I know several of you are in there. He's been around as an Agile coach for at least 10 years, 12 years, I guess. And Paul van der Haar, who is also an experienced Agile consultant. And there's another link which you probably can't click, which is a shame. I use this in Teams all the time, but Zoom can't do it. And you'll be getting the link for that afterwards. If you want to find your way right now, it's at gladwellacademy.com, and you can find it under our training menu. All right. I've been talking for a bit now. So in our work, we have a whole bunch of Agile coaches, and what have been their learnings from the coronavirus and COVID. I've spoken to 3 people mostly. We have Eduardo Alvim, who is a fantastic Agile coach and SPC. And he was the first one who actually approached me. I do a lot of the content preparation at Gladwell Academy. So because I'm quite skilled at writing, I often help my colleagues craft stories to show and tell about their work. And he said, my client Sanofi asked me, why should we even bother with Agile ways of working while we're in this crisis? I mean, don't we have other priorities now? That's one impact of social distancing. People start to question the transformation itself. And a lot of you might feel that resonate quite deeply in your Agile coaching soul, because you're the champion. And suddenly people are questioning your entire reason to do your work. If a product owner questions the transformation, they still have their product. But if someone questions the transformation in the face of an Agile coach, this is your product. So that really makes a difference, makes an impact. So I have a response to that. And Renate also had a response to that. Social distancing has, of course, also a very visceral, a very tangible impact, in that teams are suddenly left without their usual ways of working. The coffee machine, it's unavailable. The reception is closed. The physical entry to the building is locked. How are we going to meet? So they wrestle with remote ways of working. And my colleague Simon had a story on that. And as an Agile coach, because it's such a free-form role, you're really what the Dutch call a vliegende kiep, a flying keeper, like a champion, like a Ronin samurai. You roam the corporate landscape looking for a fight, looking for a challenge. And how do those fights reach your ears? Well, through the grapevine mostly. You know what they say, the informal communication circuit. People come up to you and say, hey, we have an issue here. Could you join us? And people come up to you and say, we're going to start a program. Could you help launch it? And I have several stories to share on those 3 areas and learnings from there that I want to share with you. In general, you might say that, let's see what I wanted to do. Right. You know, the Scrum framework was always put in the Stacy complexity matrix as being ideal. I'm circling that with my PowerPoint pen now for the complex environment. But after the virus struck, suddenly we were moving from complex to increasingly complex to even chaotic. And I hope you can see me drawing those arrows in there now. So how to cope? You know, Agile ways of working, we always situate them for people who are navigating a jungle. But now suddenly the jungle is on fire. And is there even an approach to planning when everything is up in the air? Okay. That's why I put that Stacy complexity matrix there. And I think that now that the first wave has settled a bit, we're seeing a move back from the chaos of the first couple of months. And that means, to a certain extent, we can all get back to work. And I think it's time, if you're not realizing that, to realize that. Because the main point of this webinar, and it's a different point that I would have made a month ago, but a lot has changed in a month. It's time for you as an Agile coach to help your teams build the new normal. And there's a role for you there. There's a big role for you there. Okay. Firstly, that question that Eduardo got asked from his client, why should we even bother? And my jaw just dropped to the ground because that is a no-brainer. Suddenly change is all around you, in your face. How are you going to respond as a company, as an organization? Never have the agile ways of working been more important than in times of change, times of acute and sudden change. The whole point that David Marquette, the former submarine captain, makes in his talk, in his TED Talk, is that you want to decentralize decision-making, that you want to put authority where the knowledge is, to make sure that your teams and your professionals can take their own decisions when the time comes. And if you're distanced, as we are today, then it makes all the more sense to communicate vision, to communicate backlogs, to communicate work breakdown structures in order for people who are located remotely to make their own decisions. The rationale is evident. There's a meme across the internet that I want to share with you. You may know it. It's a meme, so it's well known. Industrial civilization says, oh, we have such difficulty changing. We can't shut everything down to lower emissions, to slow climate change, to protect the environment. Bang! Mother Nature throws a virus in your face. Practice. This meme has popped up all over the place. Change is all around, and we have to change. And as Agile coaches, you are champions of change. So help your teams embrace it. And everything is already there in your toolbox. Your work breakdown structures, your Scrum ceremonies, your governance from product owner to tribe lead to cluster lead, if you're following the Spotify model, or from product owner to product manager to solution owner, etc. In SAFe. It's all there. But you do need to exert yourself to make it known again to your teams. So it's a no-brainer. That's what I said to Eduardo. I can't believe you're being asked this question. And Renate had a similar story. Hers followed a month later and said, people who have their head set straight on their shoulders, they know that this is the new normal and that the agile ways of working aren't really impacted that much by social distancing. There's no reason why you wouldn't continue with the transformation or why it wouldn't make sense. Customers are still fickle-minded. We still cannot go on expecting that things are going to be the same tomorrow or in a year's time as they were last year. So opening yourself up to change still makes sense. There's still a reason for Agile coaching, in short. All right. Why Agile? Of course, Agile. That's the point I wanted to make. People who would voice this doubt, though, you know, we have a bit of a framework that we use at Gladwell Academy and at Blink Lane Consulting for companies that are marching up the Agile mountain or the lean Agile mountain. It's mostly here, if you can see my pen drawing on the screen. It's mostly here that you would really have some doubts on whether we shall continue. Because, okay, to illustrate here, we apply this framework to companies that want to know, where are we going with this agile transformation? And this is, of course, something that an agile coach should be capable of doing, charting the road ahead. And this is how we chart the road ahead. Okay, you're going to start with agile teams. Some will be multifunctional, others not so much. Some will be limited to a department. Others will be multi-departmental from the get-go. But it'll be very ad hoc and it'll be very experimental. Those teams, it really depends on individual resolve. Are we still going to do this? And it may be tough, but it's very much based on individuals. Here in phase 2, lower level management starts getting in on the game and starts okaying a request from a professional to take part in an interdepartmental or a trans-departmental team. Okay, so you're moving up a level, above the level of departments. And for that, you need buy-in from department managers, because they're not going to allow you to do that if they don't see the point. And those are the people you have to convince as an Agile coach, especially in times of social distancing. And they need to have the trust that it still makes sense for their professionals to do this. Moving higher on the mountain in this phase, which I'm drawing here, and this phase, you'll see that a lot of buy-in already exists in meteor and senior levels of management. Here, you'll probably have something like value stream identification, and that's pretty major. And then the resolve to work in this way is pretty major. And we put this chasm here to illustrate that in the wave and spike metaphor, if you're familiar with that. They say change comes in waves and spikes. That's a McKinsey metaphor. There's a long sustained wave from the bottom up, and then there's a spike from management top down. And this chasm is much like a spike. It's where you have to supplement the bottom up wave of change from teams through departments, through value streams. And you have to supplement that with a decision from senior management to start amending things like salary houses, so compensation structures to accommodate. You have to adjust recruitment policies. You have to adjust performance reviews. So HR, legal, compliance, finance, they really have to get in on the game. And there's a chasm because those are sensitive subjects, and companies really, really want to have to be serious about their transformation if they want to jump that chasm. We've seen that at several companies, which is why we made a point in this journey diagram. So to reiterate, as an Agile coach, if your company is in this phase 2 and you have to get buy-in from department managers and line managers for professionals to stay in their Agile teams, then your work is toughest in our point of view. All right, that's why I wanted to put that one in there. And Gladwell Academy does that with Agile Transformation Through Education, which is our slogan. Yay. So, if you want to learn your work as an Agile coach, you first have to empathize with your team. So what's troubling them? We actually did this. We did the empathy map canvas. And I want to invite you to do it for a bit yourself. I wanted to invite you to do that for a bit yourself, but I see we're already you know, I'm doing this webinar for the first time, haha. So I really had some unclarity whether I would have all the time that I need for it. So I'm going to skip that little interactive bit and go to our learnings. What is troubling your teams? What do they hear? What do they see? What do they say? And what are the pains that you want to tap into with your gains? And based on personal experience and the experience of my colleagues, I think teams wrestle with a couple of things. They wrestle with remote collaboration. It's quite evident. And for you as an Agile coach, it means a very simple challenge. Reinvent yourself, firstly, as a remote coach. My weapon of choice is Teams and Mural. So when we saw ourselves facing remote delivery, I embraced Teams, I embraced Mural, I got good at it, and I started using the hell out of those. If Trello is your weapon of choice, fine. If Zoom is your weapon of choice, fine. But get good at something remote to show your teams the way forward. We're dealing with ways of working, and if remote is the way of working, then that's what you need to be good at. I've listed several here. I just want to point out one of them. That's Favro, which I had a great time exploring. I think Teams, Mural, and Favro are really my weapons of choice. And I quickly want to share a Favro screen with you. I obviously, yeah. It's a lot like Trello. I don't know if you know it, but it's yeah. I see. Okay. I see people using Teams and Azure DevOps. Yes. So get good at working at showing people how to work remote, because that's what teams really wrestle with. What I love about Favro, I'm not going to show you the actual Favro screens, but what I love about Favro is that you can have cards exist on multiple boards at the same time. And that's great for your work breakdown structure, from epics to features to user stories. And it's great for multifunctional teams to have items on a sprint backlog and on a product backlog at the same time. And so I've really stopped using Trello unless I have to. Favro is slightly more expensive. So some of our clients really want us to use free accounts because it's an experimental phase, and well, that's understandable. But if I can, I try to abandon Trello and use Favro. Some in a larger corporate environment, of course, use Jira, but Jira is way more expensive and a bit heavier. But those are great tools to socialize backlogs. And even if you're already using them, get better at them. When we talk about customer feedback in the Agile ways of working, a common heard truism is, how much of Microsoft Word do average users use? And it's 14 or 15%. It's really, really small. That doesn't mean that all the other functionality in Microsoft Word is useless. It just means that people don't need it now. So if you dive deeper into either Favro, Trello, Jira, or all those other tools, you'll find more functionality that you can use. And your teams will not have the time or the headspace to embrace that stuff, and you can help them do it. So get good at remote, and if you're already good at remote, get better. I live and breathe Teams, and I honestly say I haven't found everything about that program yet. There's still stuff that I learn every day and that I share with my teams, and they really appreciate it. Right. So teams wrestle with remote collaboration and help them out there. They might have cold feet about diving into a major workshop. As you know, the attention span for remote collaboration is rather limited, so keep your workshops and sessions small. Already with one client, I made the mistake of suggesting them a 3-hour workshop, but the response was swift. No, sir, we're not going to do a 3-hour workshop. You can have 1 hour of our time, and it better make sense. Well, fine. I'll adapt my my delivery to 1 hour and give them what I have. And if they like it, they'll be back for more. And I am pretty confident that they will be. So I have quite a few small 1-hour sessions to quickly give people an idea of how they might use their existing tooling, Teams, Mural, Favro, even better. Okay. So there's this one. Another one, Teams wrestle with collaboration itself. And this was, of course, hugely true in the first weeks of the coronavirus. People had no idea how they were going to establish their ways of working. And now the wave is settling, but make no mistake, people are still struggling. There's still a lot of motivation to follow anyone. And I'm talking from the team level to the executive level, anyone who has an idea how to continue. So be bold. You as an Agile coach are one of the few people in your organizations that is paid to chart new ways of working. So do it, map it out, reinvent the Agile ways during remote. You design how it fits best with your company. For me, for us, these past few weeks, it has been mostly about reinventing reaffirming the work breakdown structure and the governance around that work breakdown structure. So it's almost like someone was hit in the head with an event and they have a slight concussion and they just need to get their head straight again. So a lot of this is reaffirming your governance, talking to product owners, product managers, tribe leads, cluster leads, depending on which framework you use, and going over the work breakdown structure, who is doing what, and find them again and rebuild the ceremonies that you had in a physical environment and rebuild them. Set calendar dates, choose a platform, choose protocols, and be bold in that sense. This is your work as an Agile coach, and you have the mandate to do it. And your teams will thank you for it, because if it's not you, it's no one. And that means they're just figuring it out by themselves. And that is a lot slower and with a lot less satisfaction. Okay. So map your Agile ways and communicate them with the content authorities, and of course with the process authorities, the Scrum Masters, the RTEs, and establish protocols for the new ways of working. Your teams will thank you, and they'll come back to you. But that's for your existing teams. What are you going to do now that the grapevine that got you your work before, of course, yes, small sessions is another remark here. People have limited time. They're in meetings all day, so don't take too much of their time. But what do you do now that now that the grapevine has been cut? That's what I want to get to in a bit. Another thing that I wanted to pay attention to is what teams wrestle with is loneliness, just plain and simple. A company, a workplace is a social area, and we are social beings. We want to be in touch with each other. Me sitting here blabbering on into this microphone, it feels disembodied, and I am used to sitting in a physical room. So how do you do that? As an Agile coach, tell your Scrum Masters or tell anyone who's facilitating a meeting to not be shy and put personal flavor in your sessions. Just a little bit like I did at the beginning, asking you, where are you guys from? You responded in droves. Everybody just shouted, Hungary, Turkey, India. That's fun. I don't have too much opportunity to do that now, but I would love to spend time to get to know you guys. And it's even more so if you're in a corporate team. Already I see a Scrum Master from a couple of days ago struggling to bridge the divide between the Netherlands and Poland from two teams or two halves of a team. Spend time on that stuff as an Agile coach. Your team will love you for it. So yeah, bring the people back into the remote session. Bring fun back into the session, please. Just having you guys put a whole bunch of Post-its in a mural is just a bit of fun. And if we had more time, then we'd have more games, and we pepper our trainings with Kahoots and Mentimeters and different fun chapters. They can be professional, but they can just be informal and personal as well. Have a pub quiz, and don't just plan it after hours. Plan it in work time. You as an Agile coach have the mandate to tell the line manager or the person holding the budget for this team that this makes sense. Because normally you do it around the coffee machine, but there is no coffee machine. Not in the way, in the water cooler way that we used to have them. So make fun a part of the working day. That's what you can do as an Agile coach. Pecha Kucha, or show and tell, that's the professional flavor of a pub or of a social event. Have people just take the stage and talk about the work that they're doing. Otherwise, you're just going to have the ceremonies and be done with it. People want to relax, take the stage, shine for a bit, and you can give them that stage. They'll be shy, but they will thank you for it. What I've done with my colleagues from time to time is just agree on, for the next hour, we're going to keep our mic and our cam on. So we're just going to continue individual work, but we're going to have the mic and the cam on. So if you have something that pops into your mind, hey, I saw this great movie yesterday. You should really check it out on Netflix or Hulu or whatever. And that's the kind of informal stuff that builds a social life around your work. And you won't have that if all your meetings are about content, about professional content, about doing the work. So just relaxing, keeping your mic and your camera on for a bit. You'd have that if you still shared an office. It's something you can suggest as an Agile coach. And again, people will be shy, but they will like it. Then we come to the grapevine. It's cut, so fertilize it. And here I come to the assumption that I had at the beginning of this training, thinking a lot of you would be freelance Agile coaches, because as a freelance coach, you'll have even more distance to your client, to your company. So how do you fertilize that grapevine? And I've been talking to Renate and Simon and experimenting with it myself on how to do that. And the answer is pretty simple. It involves a lot of digital legwork. Get out, talk to people, showcase your expertise. We had a little exercise where we had the different domains. If you're good at Teams, put out a sign outside your shop. Send everybody an email saying, hey, by the way, I don't know if you know me yet, but if you are struggling with your team, look me up. This is what I'm good at. If you have experience, on the other hand, with coaching executives, don't be shy. Email those guys or girls and say, listen, as an executive, you're supposed to show everybody the way. What if you have confusion on doing that yourself? I'm here to help you. In case you haven't met me yet, look me up. Don't be shy there. Again, you'll feel like a salesman, but as a freelancer, it's already what you're doing. As an internal coach, you'll have to embrace a little bit of that inner salesman as well to get out there and make yourself known. Fertilize the grapevine. Bring out your Rolodex. Call people and plan half an hour with them. Half an hour is a small investment to make for people to get to know you again and get to know what you have to give them. Who are the good people to get in touch with here? The content authorities, program managers, business owners, subject matter experts. Scrum Masters and RTEs and other process-minded people will probably already know you, but it's mostly the content authorities that need more coaching from the Agile coach to manage their backlog and socialize their features. I know we're approaching the end here, and I'm almost done. Join their ceremonies. Nobody minds an Agile coach visiting their ceremonies. So especially the retrospectives. There's so much to learn about getting better at working remote. And if you're there, you can help them improve. And if they put improvement items in their backlogs based on your input, they will also get back in touch with you to monitor how that's going. And it's a buy-in of your services. So join their ceremonies again. You may have abandoned that practice as you moved up into the domains of Agile coaching, but it's a great way to fertilize the grapevine. Get back in there. Because a new normal is emerging, this is not going to go away. Here's a gym teacher in a high school giving a gym class over the laptop. And even gym classes are being given remote. So it's really rapidly becoming a new normal. A new generation is being educated in this manner, and schools will get better at this as well. So, you need to embrace that. And the real reason, the fundamental reason behind the Agile ways of working is that change is a constant, and that itself is not changing. The real reason behind Agile ways of working is that customers are very mobile, and they will go to a competitor if you're not honoring their wishes fast enough, and that is not going away. So the fundamental rationale behind Agile ways of working and behind the Agile coaches, that rationale is not going anywhere. There's more work for us, not less. Thank you very much. That's my webinar for now, and let's entertain some questions. Hope you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun building this stuff. All right. Any questions from the Q&A? I'll have a look at them. What are the essential techniques of an Agile coach? Well, that really goes into the course itself. I would suggest you have a look at the brochure for the bootcamp for that. It's a really, really broad palette of skills, going from coaching Scrum Masters to charting work breakdown structures and governance and lean portfolio management with executives. So it's a really big basket of tools. So I can't really go into all that right now. But if you're interested in that, get in touch with one of our professionals, or get in touch with the bootcamp. And if there are no more questions at this time, then I'll just sit here and watch all of you leave again. I really had a great time giving you this story. I look forward to the challenging times ahead, but I look forward to them with optimism. It's going to be okay, guys. Thank you very much. Am I going to share the slides some way? I don't know. I believe we have all of your email addresses, and it's not like there's anything hugely secret in this presentation, so I wouldn't mind. I'll put up a PDF and send it over. Okay. Great, Debbie. You should leave with new positive energy. Fantastic. Okay. Okay. Eduardo's story was not clear to me. Okay, let me rephrase. Eduardo didn't so much come in with a story, but with a question. Eduardo was the one who pointed out to me that this was actually a question that he got from a client. Why should we even bother about the Agile ways of working now that we're all locked down and remote, etc.? Because this client, maybe that's a bit more light. This client thought that the Agile ways of working are mostly about face-to-face contact, being in the same room. And that's, of course, not the point. It's opening yourself up to change. It's opening yourself up to a conversation with your customer. And that's the reason why all these companies do it. Doing a stand-up every morning isn't the point. And that story from Eduardo with the question from the client was the prompt, was the reason why we started thinking about, hey, customers are actually asking this question. And wow, it's such a no-brainer. Okay. Okay, Cristiano. Have a great day. Okay, so participants, we still have 12 attendees. I'm just going to hang around here until you all leave the room. Any other remarks? Just drop them in the chat. Okay, so we've got 6 people left. I think I am going to leave you to your day and move on. Had a great time and have a great day.
Hey Boris.
Hey Floris.
Hey, ik ben er nog.
Ja, volgens mij, we hebben nog 8 participants, hè? Participants.
All right. Could you turn off the recording?
Sure.